Alrighty, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to Beyond the Backboard. Today is a very special episode. Typically, you're used to just seeing the three of us, of course, Earl, Omar, and myself, Max. But today is a special day. We have one of our good friends, Alex, here. She is a very diehard Lakers fan, probably one of the more rational Lakers fans you're going to find. She's our good friend from the PSF app and the podcast that we do over there, Full Court Press. Highly encourage you guys to check that out. She's an intern for PSF. She works with the Lakers chat. She does Full Court Press with us. She's been doing a great job over there. So we wanted to invite her on, have her join the conversation today, balance out the forces. She is a Lakers fan, so we've got two Lakers fans, two Knicks fans. So Alex, we appreciate you helping us balance the force here on Beyond the Backboard. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm very honored that I can balance out the turf wars a little bit. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here, and I'm glad to know that I'm one of the more rational Lakers fans, apparently.
I would definitely say so. We are lucky on this podcast to have two Lakers fans who know what they're talking about and are not just going to go out and die on every single hill for the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, real quick, Alex, this is something we talked about kind of in our first episode that we did like months ago, but I wanted to ask you about this as well. What was kind of like your like Lakers fan origin story? Like, how did you get into the NBA? How did you come to like start rooting for the Lakers? What does that fandom kind of look like? Just kind of talk a little bit about like your journey up to this point in terms of an NBA fan.
All right. So unlike Earl, I'm actually like born and raised in Southern California. So it started as a local thing, and there was no way in heck that I was going to go over to the Clippers because why would I do that? Respectfully. If I'm gonna go for a SoCal team, I'm gonna go for the Lakers. I've been watching since I was a kid. I still remember like the prime, like late 2000s, early 2010s run with like Kobe, Gasol, Fisher, and like that entire crew over there. That was kind of my Lakers awakening. I'd watch these games with my dad, especially, so that was super cool. I'd go to both like televised games and then like go to live games. Sometimes I get dragged to the Clippers games and then pray on their downfall. That was mostly when I was a kid. I don't pay my own adult money to do that no more, thankfully. But yeah, I've just been watching since I was a kid. Started as a local thing, and then by the time as time progressed, I like saw the good and the bad, the very bad, in the mid 2010s especially, and now we are here. Somewhat promising this year, somewhat tumultuous as always, but I guess that's my journey. It's just been a childhood team essentially, I'd say.
Awesome.
I love it.
What would you say has been your favorite Lakers team that you watched? Would it be like that 2010s team, like, you know, the end of the Kobe championships like you mentioned?
I feel like it would. Low-key, it would have to be, in terms of just like the skill and like the accolades and all that, it is going to be like that 2008, 2010, like that championship run. In terms of entertainment, there were a couple of like really weird starting five graphics that I was seeing all over social media. So I guess the ones with like Jordan Hill on the starting graphic, like I feel like in terms of entertainment, maybe I'll say those are some of my favorites. In terms of like actual proper good basketball, I will say like that championship era was really nice. But yeah, I guess I'll say that.
Very fair. There's a pretty iconic graphic, I think, of Knicks Lakers starting five, I think from like 2015. If we can find it, we'll put it up on the screen right now. It's like Jordan Clarkson, Jordan Hill that you mentioned. I think Wayne Ellington's in there for the Lakers. And the Knicks got like Alexis Shved, Langston Galloway, and Lou Almondson or something. I hope we can find that. We'll put it up here if we can. But yeah, Alex, like you said, the Lakers, they've had a pretty good start to the season at times. They've looked good. They've looked bad sometimes. We talked a lot about the Lakers in-season tournament win last week on our podcast, but obviously now that we got you on here, another resident Lakers fan, what's kind of the emotions going through your head? You know, how much does this mean to you as a Lakers fan? Is this something that like stands out as like a significant milestone to your team? Is like, wow, we accomplished this? Is this kind of just like cool? You know, we're still waiting for LeBron's, you know, fifth ring here.
I think of course I'm gonna celebrate it to a certain extent. Of course, it's like a championship win where all the teams were involved. It is not exactly the big ring, and we are going to go for that 18th. That's the biggest goal. Is it a legitimate championship? Yes. Is it also bait for a bunch of people on Twitter to call it a second fake ring? Also yes. But we're going to celebrate the wins anyways. All the teams competed for it, so it is what it is. And I think the thing about this in-season tournament win is that it kind of gives me confidence for that bigger milestone anyways of winning that 18th ring, because I'm gonna be honest, before the in-season tournament, I don't know about Earl, but like it was a really weird time weird start to the season where like 3 games in, half our roster was injured. So the confidence was not fully there. But then the in-season tournament kind of reeled it back in, which was super nice. I don't really care what anyone else says on social media. They can say it was fake.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
I gotta say. Also, I'm gonna try my best not to be talking this episode, unfortunately. So Max is gonna lead the pod. Great job so far. Do not get me wrong. Great job. It's just there's a lot of echo going on around here and on my side. So I'm just gonna try to keep it to a minimum as much as I can. But I wanted to add that I was sincerely impressed by AD's performance in the Cup game. I think it was one of the better performances that we've seen him had. And along with LeBron James, he's showed that he can defy age. And I think that's the big thing that LeBron is looking for, to finally be seen as the greatest of all time instead of just second to Michael. So, I mean, I think the day will come eventually that LeBron does surpass MJ. But I think people need to grab a little bit of a reality check when they talk about Michael versus Jordan. I mean, Michael versus Jordan.
Yeah, that's
Michael versus LeBron.
Grasping the reality that you were asking others to grab. I don't think you were.
You almost had me, Omar. You almost had me. You had me locked in. Michael versus Michael is crazy. No,
but yeah, you guys know what I'm trying to say, though. I think when it's all said and done, eventually LeBron will be considered the greatest of all time. Nobody's doing it at his age.
Yeah,
that's
a good point though, that you bring up, Omar. And I want to ask this to the two resident Lakers fans here. Omar just mentioned, obviously a lot of the narrative around Bron is kind of his push against Jordan. That kind of one-on-one. As much as it's obviously about the Lakers as a team, LeBron's, probably going to take center stage in terms of the social media narrative for as long as he is on that team. So as fans, obviously you guys aren't a part of the organization, but is there kind of that pressure to get LeBron, that fifth ring, to get him on that same level or past Jordan? Is that kind of a prevalent thing that you're thinking about, where it's man, LeBron's only got X amount of years, we got to get him this, that, and the other thing? This fifth ring, obviously the 18th is super important to the Lakers as a whole, but we also got to get it for LeBron's sake.
I mean, I don't know about Alex, but to be honest, I don't even know how to say this respect. It's not that I don't care, but it's more I'm looking for the team success. I want LeBron. It'd be cool to have LeBron get his fifth ring. Obviously, as far as all-time greats, he's up there with Jordan. There's a lot of conversations. He doesn't have enough rings. But for me, my mindset throughout this year is just being consistent. If we can be healthy, we can bring a team that can play around LeBron James. Our shooters can hit shots. Our team can stay healthy. Anthony Davis can play dominant. That's more so what I'm worried about. I mean, I think we just expect winning culture anyway. So LeBron being on our team and chasing that fifth ring kind of goes with it. But I mean, I'm not waking up dang, we got to get Bron's fifth ring or I'm not going to sleep tonight. I just want to win, to be honest. But if the ring comes with it, it will. I'm happy for Bron. And I already said the championship window is far from over, in my opinion. I think we have this year, if we can compete, maybe we can get Bron to stay another year and see where we go from there.
Yeah, I'd say something similar. I feel like we're just focused on getting a title, getting that win. I think especially because in last year's season, we got pretty close. We were in the Western Conference Finals. Not only were we close, we were embarrassingly swept as well. So I feel like there's a little bit of collective desire to get the title this time around. I think in terms of LeBron, I think it's rather than less so about LeBron versus MJ or Michael versus Jordan or LeBron versus James, as Omar was saying. I think it's a little less than that. I think it's also just trying to round out his career as a great individual. I'm sorry, Omar. But what I'll say, I think it's more so about rounding out his career as an individual. He is going to be a great no matter where he stands on the top. Realistically, I think he's either one or two on most people's list, but wherever he stands on that for people, I think it's just about rounding out his career as a really great player. So I guess that's what I'd say on an individual stance, but I think like Earl said, it's a lot more about just getting that collective win.
I just want to quote Shaq here when I say this. When LeBron gets number one in points, everybody got to shut the hell up, because at that point, I feel like nobody can say anything to him. I mean, I agree with Shaq, but I disagree with Shaq. I think maybe one more ring will do it for me. But as it stands right now, I'm still taking Michael, personally.
That's why I just don't like the. We had this conversation before. I hate the GOAT debate so much. It's so many standards, and the bar is always going to move. And I'm not saying who is this and who is that, but championships. You got Bill Russell sitting alone. Then you got Michael Jordan. He has 6, obviously. Won them, 3-peat twice. That's impressive, obviously. Never lost in the finals. That's a perfect resume. And then you got LeBron James. Obviously, he's went to the finals a lot of times. Can we factor in teams? Some of those teams were kind of mid. Not going to lie to you. It is what it is. Some of the teams he choked. Mavericks versus Heat. Definitely should have won that. Taking care of business. Shout out to Dirk. The Heat killer. But, yeah, you got points. LeBron James has scored the most points all the time when people consider him in his career as being like a playmaker. Like, how does the best playmaker become the all-time leading scorer and do it in less minutes than Kareem? Like, it's just a lot of different factors. So I just don't know what the bar is. Like, it's so many different outliers, moving things, assists, rebounds, all these different things. All NBA, Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, Michael Jordan had more of those. All-star selections. It's just a whole lot of MVPs. Like, I don't know. It's a lot of moving pieces. So I think no matter what happens, LeBron could go out there and score however many points. Like, there's always going to be people who say Jordan is better. It's just going to be like that for the end of time. So I don't even think that debate is something that will ever be like concrete, in my opinion.
I honestly don't think so either.
You go ahead, Alex.
I know. No, I was just gonna say that like I think the hardest part of it is that like LeBron's ceiling isn't completely reached yet, even though he is like 38 years old. I feel like I was saying this on a different show that I was doing in like a different show I was doing. Like when we talk about LeBron James and like his ceiling, I feel like he's not one of those people where you can really easily define like a ceiling or like predict where he's gonna stop, because he, even at like 38, he's like redefining what he can do. But I also feel like that it's a little similar with Michael Jordan. Obviously, he's like retired, so it's like we've seen like what he can do for the league and all that, and we've seen him at his best. And you can say that for LeBron too. But it's like people are almost like rediscovering different things about Michael Jordan's game, even in like 2023, and they're like bringing up different points like that. So I feel like the debate itself is kind of like, I feel like they're both very respectable answers, and I feel like people are going to be changing their answers a lot. But that's just kind of how I feel about it. I feel like they're both very respectable answers, and like you can always find different things on both their games, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of those can be deciding factors in different ways that you want to rank these players. I think it truly is hard to tell like how to like have a conversation about the GOAT debate. Like there's so many different aspects that could be used. So, I mean, while talking about that, you guys do make sense. I do feel like the GOAT debate is a little like redundant in the sense like there's no way to prove it outside of our little bubble that we're creating. So I mean, I guess it's one of those questions that's just gonna go like unanswered.
Yeah, I think football, I also follow football a lot, and over there in the NFL, it's gotten to the point where a lot of people, or like most fans, do kind of acknowledge Tom Brady as the GOAT, which is interesting because, as you guys have said, the GOAT debate is so ambiguous and subjective. So, but it's interesting that over there, the fact that one guy has kind of cemented himself to the point where his nickname is literally the GOAT, and that I would say the majority of fans, even modern fans who like saw the greats of the past play, even most fans today, I think acknowledge Tom Brady as the GOAT. And I think a big part of that was when he won his last championship with Tampa Bay. Yep. That was kind of the final box that he needed to check, was can he do it outside of New England? And when he did that, that was kind of the last straw for a lot of people to say, okay, this guy, we can kind of honorarily crown him as the GOAT. So in my opinion, I think if I were to put LeBron ahead of Jordan, I would need to see at least one more ring from LeBron. I always said that if he could pass, because my top three, I had a kind of a weird top three. For the longest time, it was MJ, Wilt, and then Kareem. I always said that if LeBron can pass Kareem in points, I would put him number 3, and he has done that. So he is currently number 3 on my list. I know I'm crazy. I'm the one Wilt Chamberlain stan out there. But I think LeBron definitely, if he can pull off, I think, one more championship and play another 2 to 3 years at like an all-star, not even MVP, but at least an all-star unprecedented level, I think I could see myself putting him ahead Jordan. So right now, I don't think he's there personally, but he has the potential. I'm not going to be like some people say Jordan will always be the GOAT. If LeBron goes out and wins 2 more championships, I don't see how you can't make that argument for LeBron, and I would certainly be willing to do that on his behalf.
I want to throw an interesting hypothetical in there about Wilt Chamberlain. So, as we all know, there's some speculation about if Wilt Chamberlain actually got 100 points in one game. What do you guys think of that?
Is there?
There. Believe it or not, there is speculation that the NBA wasn't seriously taking tabs back then, right? So there's a lot of fill-ins, a lot of this, a lot of that. So they feel like there was a lot of influence on that game with Wilt Chamberlain. I want to get your thoughts on that game, on that, guys. I know obviously it's just like a little theory. Nobody really cares about.
Taboo, huh?
A little taboo, exactly.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I heard that before, and like I remember someone said that the most legitimate evidence that we have is Wilt Chamberlain holding up like a 100 sign written in crayon. I don't know how true. I'm sure there's like a different stat somewhere. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure there is. But after hearing that, I feel like my entire perspective changed. I feel like it didn't really lower Wilt's ranking in my list. Super low or anything like that, but like hearing that kind of changed my life, to be honest. So I don't have like my full thoughts formulated, but that's just what I think. And I want to know, Max, as your current number 2 player, where do you stand on that?
I got it, boys. I got it.
I'm not going to argue that the NBA stat keeping was the most accurate back in the day. Certainly not. I will be the first to say, even as a Knicks fan, everyone says that Walt Frazier had like 18 assists in Game 7 of the 1970 finals. He did not. He had like 6. If you actually go back and watch the full game, he had like a third of those assists. That's just a fact. So I can definitely believe that some of the stats were fudged one way or the other. But if Wilt did not score 100 that game, he probably scored 100 in another game that people don't know about it. Like, it evens out. You know, the thing with Wilt that makes me rank him so highly is the fact that the basketball like record book or the NBA record book is basically just Wilt Chamberlain's basketball reference page. Like, you go through, there's records that Wilt set that are only being broken now, 50 years later, when the game is completely different. And you ask like any of the players that he played against back in the day, almost all of them will tell you that Wilt was just built differently and that he's absolutely just the most dominant player. Obviously, he never got the rings that Bill Russell does, and everyone will bring that up. But what people forget is that Wilt made the finals so many times, like a LeBron-esque amount of times in the finals. And he lost, I think, 2 or 3 finals in Game 7, close Game 7s, to the point where if just a couple plays go differently, Wilt has 5 rings right now, and Russell has 8. And then the narrative is completely different, I think, surrounding those two. So, and you can't also discredit the fact that Russell played with so many Hall of Famers. His teams were literally basically all-star teams. We played with 6, 7, 8 future Hall of Famers at the same time, whereas Wilt, he really never got to play with that level of talent. Obviously, he had Jerry West and Elgin Baylor at the end of his career, but he wasn't the same. They weren't the same. He still got 2 championships out of it. So, not to turn this whole episode into like the Wilt Chamberlain debate. Maybe we can do that some other time, like during the offseason, but...
I mean, hey, this is the designated Lakers episode, and he was a Laker at one point.
This is the designated Lakers episode, and Wilt did win that ring for the Lakers. He was a big part of that championship team, so... I do agree with what you're saying, Omar. I'm sure the stat keeping was a little spotty back then. Do I think it tarnishes Wilt's 100? Absolutely not. Like I said, if he only got 98 that game, damn, he only got 98 points. He's still very much clear of Kobe's 81, one way or the other. So in my mind, Wilt Chamberlain is still, it doesn't devalidate him. But we could probably do a whole deep dive, through the archives and check out NBA performances that allegedly happened but didn't actually happen.
Yeah, I feel like he probably did it, man. Like, just looking at Wilt, how, no pun intended, how built Wilt was, he probably dropped 100. Like, I'm with Max, bro. If he didn't do it that game, maybe he got a different game. Like, I'm not... It is a little sus, the Crayola, Crayola pencil and the paper with 100. That's the only evidence we really have. Like you said, stat keepers back in the day maybe weren't the most accurate. Maybe didn't have the best use of glasses, prescriptions back then. It's still, we're building to it, but yeah, I like the conspiracy thought, but I'm gonna just let it be in the history books. Wilt has 100. Only reason I said that too is we've seen people get close to that. Obviously, Wilt wasn't a 3-point shooter, yes, but if an NBA player actually wanted to get 100 today, and they went with the mentality, hey, I'm gonna go take 40 plus shots tonight, I think somebody could score 100. So I have no doubt in my mind that Wilt versus those young, skinny guys back then was dropping 100. Probably once, I would say for sure once, and maybe like high 60s, 70s a couple of times, respectively. So I'm going to believe Wilt. I'm going to trust his word on that one.
So I just want to say the theory stems from one thing, which is the fact that the game was not televised. There is no video. video footage of the game ever recovered, and there was only audio recordings of the fourth quarter. That's the only reason why that this theory exists. But I mean,
Sounds legit.
It does sound legit, but the I wanted to look up the field goal percentage because maybe they didn't have it or whatever they want to say, but I mean 36 of 63 from shooting with 28 free throws will certainly get you 100 points. Yeah, right? Like, come on.
68 shots up is insane.
Well, wait, you know what? This is questionable. How did he get fouled 28 times? Or, well, he's not 28, but 14, right?
If you're not fouling Wilt, you're not stopping him. I think, Giannis did just take 30 free throws a couple nights ago. Same vein. When you got someone that tall, that athletic, that dominant around the rim, if you're not grabbing onto their arms, they're just gonna dunk on your head. I feel like
that is true.
I gotta say, the closest build to Wilt Chamberlain today would be Giannis Antetokounmpo.
If you're talking just strictly build wise and play wise, I could agree with that. I mean, I think the way that we see Giannis just kind of like he is a big and he's like 6'10", 6'11", he's darn near a 7-footer. But he's so incredibly strong. He's so incredibly fast. The way he just runs down the court, the length of his strides can only be compared to Wilt Chamberlain. I think there was a story where Wilt beat an Olympic sprinter in a dash. You'd think I'm kidding, but I'm not. I feel like the only player who could somewhat, live up to that in terms of that size, but also that sort of athleticism and just, pure, end-to-end, up and down type of speed would probably be Giannis. And I think it's telling that, we see Giannis play a somewhat similar game to him, Both could probably be a little bit better at free throw shooting, but when it comes to defense, rebounding, scoring around the rim, they both dominated their areas respectively.
Is there a more credible source for that Olympic runner story than the 100-point game? I'm kidding. But no, I get it.
The Olympic sprinter story is an anecdote. I will give you that. But you know what? I'm a believer in it. Maybe call me biased, but I'm a believer.
You know what? I respect it, and I can kind of see it because he did have that great athleticism in the way he controlled the court, and in terms of just the way he moved. I feel like you can kind of see that with Giannis too. I feel like Giannis's bag is kind of getting to the rim and to some extent staying in the rim, but I think more so the way he gets to the rim is with his athleticism and his strides and his length as well. I can see why the comparisons are there. I don't know if it's a huge comparison where it's just they're carbon copies of each other. I don't think I'd say that, but I guess in terms of modern archetype, that's the closest you'd get because I feel like the game was 50, 60 year difference. So I feel like the game's going to change a lot. So I guess that's the closest modern archetype you could probably see.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of Giannis, we are coming off of a historic performance from Giannis himself, dropping 64, had, I forget how many rebounds, 16-ish rebounds, correct me if I'm wrong there, just, casually, 70-ish% from the field. But of course, the thing everyone's always going to remember from this game will not be any of his points. It will not be any of his 30 free throws. It will not be the monster dunk he threw down to cap off his night. It will be the iconic game ball debate, which is still being talked about, which is still being memed. What do y'all think about this? Because we can't. I feel like we can't talk about Giannis too much in this. Giannis dropping 64. I don't want to say it's expected, but he's a great player. We've seen him have dominant performances like this. That was, to be, if anything, the more predictable part of the game. What are we thinking about the game ball? Who should control the game ball? Who should have got the game ball? Should it have been Giannis? Should it have been the Pacers rookie Oscar? What do we feel in there?
Honestly, I'll just start here. I expected more from Giannis. I'll start with that. I feel like this was very dramatic for a very simple solution. All they had to do was have a conversation about it. That's it. Simple conversation. We talked about this a little bit on Full Court Press. These are grown men. All you have to do is, hey, I had 64 or whatever. Let's talk about it. This should be Giannis's ball. This is a Bucks home game. Like Max said, you have to have different rules and exceptions when it comes to different things like this. My honest opinion, I don't think anybody was particularly wrong about who should get the game ball. Obviously, rookies' first points, whether it was 1 or 2, whatever. Usually a rookie, when they score the first points, they get the game ball. That's kind of just the NBA thing. It happens. Giannis, career night, 64 points, his career high. Obviously, you want some type of memorabilia for your future. Obviously, people have collections. Bron has pretty much jerseys and basketballs. He opened up that museum of just different things, events that happened in his life. So you want those type of things for yourself, and just for your legacy. So I get both sides. I just feel like, in general, there should never be a situation when one of your best players, arguably best player in the league, is full 100 dash sprinting to the opposing team's locker room to go get a ball. And then the one concerning thing for me too is that their coach, respectfully, I don't know the Pacers coach name. I'm sorry. Sorry, Pacers fans. I apologize.
Rick Carlisle, no?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's Rick
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, Rick Carlisle.
Talking
My
about,
fault.
like, the head coach or the assistant one that got like
Head coach.
Head coach.
Yeah, that's what I was bringing up next. Yeah, like how the assistant coach got elbowed by a player, and he said something about maybe he had a rib contusion or something like that, which sucks, like just because of basketball. So that's my only concern. I don't think it should ever got that serious. I don't think any side is necessarily wrong about who gets the ball, but yeah, just have a conversation about it, man. Y'all are grown adults.
I gotta say, I think that torn rib thing was cap. I think it was just to like extenuate the circumstance. But look, again, just to add to your point, Earl, there's no shot. Like, this should not be accepted in the NBA. They are grown men. They are playing basketball. This is just a game. This is just the game of basketball. Everybody needs to realize and come back down to earth. I understand that this is a league. You get paid millions of dollars to play basketball. But at the same time, it is the same game that you guys started playing in your driveway. So when it comes to that, everybody needs to chill out. I get the memorabilia aspect, but I want to highlight this particular moment where Giannis gets wrapped up. Egregious foul. Shout out Nico. Egregious foul. grabs him like he's doing like a wrestling move. I think it was Aaron Naismith who grabs Giannis by like both of his shoulders. And then you just see Thanasis on the on the bench freaking out. Like, you see this man wanting to run on the court, and they have an injured you have an injured Jay Crowder just holding him back. Like, I find that to be peak comedy. Peak. But it also shows to go for it.
He was about a Greek freak out.
That's crazy, bro.
I'm sorry, I had to. You set me up for that, Omar. I'm sorry.
But like that just speaks it just speaks volumes to the point on why this shouldn't be happening. But to get back to it, you see Thanasis on the guideline like freaking out, but then I just saw Dame Lillard not paying attention to the entire situation till like the last minute. And then I see Damian Lillard like tilt his head like this. The video cuts. So I don't know what happens after that, but I have speculation where he would just went like, what the fuck? Like, I swear to God, you look at that and you're like, that's Dame. That's Dame. I think he realizes he's kind of playing with children here.
Yeah, Alex, what do you think there?
Before I go to my full thoughts, I'm gonna bring up the Thanasis thing again. I feel like that was so funny. I'm so glad you noticed that too, Omar. I feel like what's so funny about it was like he was kind of holding himself back. This is the first time he was like trying to get into a scuffle and then had to hold himself back. It's like, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's like that meme or like that video where he's just like, guys, hold me back, oh my God, hold me back, and he's like the one that's like already faltering backwards. That's what the Thanasis kind of looked like on the bench. I think it was so funny. Also bringing up the Thanasis, the tunnel view, where like someone who was sitting near the tunnel got video of Giannis running through the tunnel, and you could just see Thanasis following after him too, just trying to be like, hold on, that's my brother, like, hold on, I need to get you out of there, like, I'm gonna save you. Like, the savior complex that Thanasis had, I respect it because I know that they're brothers. I just find it really funny, and I will be laughing at it, even if there's like a rational explanation as to why. It just looks funny. That's just point blank there. But on the actual point of things, I feel like both sides are very valid in like who should get it, to be honest. Like, Giannis, not only was it like a career night, I believe it was a franchise record too, like Bucks franchise record as well at their home court. So like I kind of understand like why they wanted to have a game ball. But then as for the Pacers, I feel like it's kind of a tradition. Like, if a rookie gets their first like game point, then they should get the game ball. I think the debate would have been settled a lot easier had they just counted the in-season tournament final stats, because apparently he scored there too. But because they didn't count that, that is Oscar Tshiebwe's first game point, and I feel like that should be commemorated as well. However, I think neither of them were wrong in that aspect. I feel like I'm in a similar boat as you guys, though, where it's like Giannis was just kind of wrong for taking it as far as he did. just like 7 foot tall, just like running down the entire arena of Milwaukee, trying to find that game ball, going to press conference after getting the ball, and then saying, actually, I like felt the ball that they gave me, and I don't think that's the actual game ball, and just like continuing it to the press conference. What's the point? You are a grown 30 years old, like indirectly dishing on a rookie. I'm just like, I feel like even though he wasn't exactly wrong in feeling like he deserved the game ball, like it was too much. I feel like he was just doing too much in my eyes, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm typically a fan of whichever team wins the game should control the game ball. So I think if the Pacers had won despite a Giannis 64-point explosion, I would have been more okay with them kind of having control and being like, we're going to give this to our rookie. But the fact that the Bucks also won the game and they had a historic performance on their side, in my opinion, it should have gone to Milwaukee. But I'm still totally with you guys in that it went too far. I think Giannis had the security guys go get him the ball after the game, and then he's like, well, this isn't the right one. So it was a little downer at the end of what was otherwise like a great historic night. And this might, some people are saying this is going to spark a Pacers Bucks rivalry. I'm pretty sure they're both in the same division. I'm pretty sure they're in the Central Division together. Obviously, they played in the in-season tournament semifinals. Pacers won that. Pretty sure the Bucks have beat them twice already this year. I think Giannis also had like a 50-point game the first time they played. So, do we think that there might be something there, or is this just kind of something that's just going to get blown over and forgotten about the next time they take the court?
I think it's definitely gonna. I hopefully think this is gonna be something that blows over. I don't want to see players fighting over game balls. I want to see players fighting over games. I don't want to see players fighting over game balls. But it wouldn't be a Beyond the Backboard episode if I didn't bring up Jalen Brunson's 50-point performance. And you know what? It only relates to this conversation because I just remember later on in that game, Julius Randle grabbing the ball like this with one hand, make sure it's up. Just making sure it's up here above his head so nobody can grab it. And then he goes on one knee and he gives it to Brunson like... That is how teamwork should work, though, because you see teams that love to play selfish one-on-one basketball. Like last night, I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of moments with the Clippers versus the Knicks where it was a lot of one-on-one basketball. And not to say that they weren't succeeded in the fact, but that's going to hurt them in the long run because they don't really have the teamwork necessary to really get something down late. I mean, this is a really bad take because they just beat us 144-122. This is a really bad take because of this game in precise. But I don't think the Clippers can play this well every night. Personally, I mean, I think Kawhi Leonard can do that. I don't think Paul George can do every night what he did yesterday. I don't think James Harden can do every day what he did yesterday. And even though he scored only 10 points, like that's just the stuff that you're gonna have to take as a Clippers team. It just goes back to teamwork, and I think the Knicks have a lot of teamwork to the point where I feel like the game where we beat 50 points, and I can't remember the team they beat.
Yes.
Wow, weird flex.
Right?
It was the Suns.
Yeah.
It was the Suns.
Y'all read me like a book. I'm sorry.
He just wanted us to say it. Respectfully.
Y'all read me like a book. But I just think that we're just a better teammate-oriented team, and I think the fact that we didn't have Mitchell Robinson just added to the fact of how many good players we actually have on the squad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it probably pains you two to actually talk positively about the Clippers, but this is, I believe, their 7th win in a row, or if not, maybe their 6th out of 7, and they've been playing great basketball. Obviously, Ty Lue said, give us 10 games to figure things out. They needed all 10 of those games. I will say they needed all 10 of those games to figure it out, but they seem to have figured it out now. So over in Lakers land, how's it feel looking across the street and seeing the Clippers, kind of stepping up their game and performing at a level that some people thought they would, some people thought they wouldn't, but certainly they've been on a hot streak lately.
Honestly,
kind of terrible.
Oh no, you go. Yeah, you start.
Kind of terrible. I can't even lie. I know we can reel it back. I feel like we're only on like game 26, so we have a lot of time to reel it back. It's still kind of terrible, especially because I think they're higher than us in the Western Conference standings right now. Like they are 6th and we're 8th. That means we're in the play-in, and they're like, if the game stopped now, that they're clinched their spot. So it's kind of terrible. However, I will say that like we have a lot of games to reel it back. I feel like the thing about the Lakers is that like when they're healthy, they're so good, they're so dominant, and like they go on like these amazing win streaks. And then the second they have more than 3 people injured or 3 people sitting out, like they just kind of fall apart. And I think that's one of the things that like bothers me is like their inability to adapt. Whereas like the Clippers, I'm not gonna say they're the most adaptable because they took Lord knows how long to make the Harden fit work, but they made it work. And that's kind of what matters is that they're able to make it work at a fairly early point in the season. So I will say I will give my flowers to the Clippers because they did make it work. I will be rational. I will maintain my title of being a rational Lakers fan. Of giving them the flowers and saying that they're making it work and that they look really good. And I think they have a promising campaign. I think in terms of just like how do the Lakers fans feel about it? We have time to reel it back.
Yep.
We have 82 games in total. We're on game, 26, 27? We have time to reel it back. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree with Alex. I feel like for the most part, I said this before, Clippers could be a very dangerous team if they figure things out. And so far, they're figuring it out. And I think they learned that not all of them have to be hot in one night. Like we see games where James Harden, they won a really good game. James Harden with no Paul George, he took over. I think he had like I don't want to misquote, maybe like 28 plus. I think he had 14 assists that game too. So he was a playmaker / scoring kind of Houston Rockets, little throwback days. And they were able to win. So I think it depends on who's on the floor, how aggressive those guys have to be. And they really got to just learn their roles. So like Alex said, like it is bitter. It's really, I don't want to be a hater. Like it's cool. Yeah. They're doing their thing from a basketball perspective. The Clippers being competitive, not sucking like they should be playing, it's good for basketball, respectfully. So it's kind of like how if you have a sibling and you want to give like tough love, but you're really competitive. That's kind of the vibes here. Like, yeah, you're doing your thing. I'm not mad at you, but it is frustrating that they are ahead of us as far as standing wise. We're 8 kind of playing range, and I know we're a way better team than that, in my opinion. And they're at 6, so they're on a roll. It is a long season, like Alex said. And we got time to fix things. And for the most part, not to make any excuses, but like health has been killing us, man. Like we have yet to have a game. We haven't had one game where we had our full roster yet, which sucks. So I haven't seen game bits in the season. Vando, he's back, but he's not really back. I think he's playing like 60 minutes a game currently until he gets a little bit more healthy. Obviously lost to the Spurs. No AD that game, which is cool. He kind of deserved the rest. I'd rather him rest that game than the games we have coming up, so I'll say that. But yeah, I just want to bring this up too, Omar. it's just stuck on my head. You use the word unselfish, and then you use Julius Randle as the cover page of that whole intro to your conversation a minute ago. It just threw me off a little bit. No offense. It was like I don't know, caught me off guard.
I get it. Don't get me wrong, I get it. But Julius Randle has been less selfish for the past 6 or so games, so I'm not like completely going to agree with you there. Not going to agree with you there, but at the same time, he is. Like, I'm not going to deny that, right? Sometimes he is, sometimes he gets in his head, sometimes he feel like he's the only one that can answer. And you know what? That's Julius Randle. But for the past couple of games, he hasn't. And just to bring it back to the Clippers real quick, I understand they're doing well now. I understand they won 7 straight. I just don't think it's going to continue to carry on like that, because what we've seen from the Clippers, they get a strong start. We kind of go through this thing almost every year. Kawhi and Paul George have been there. They start off really hot, they start off really good, and then they just completely plateau and fall off. So I don't want to completely say that they're out of the books already, out of my mind already, but I want you guys to kind of look and see their history and realize maybe that they're probably still going to fall a little bit. I'm not going to be surprised if Kawhi gets another injury. He's been, and it's not his fault, but he keeps getting injured. He keeps getting injured. He's older and he keeps getting injured. So what's up?
I hate the injury. I don't know. I just hate the injury. No offense, Omar. I know this is like one of those takes. You did it with AD preseason, I'll say that. But I don't know. I just don't like the whole non-injury thing. For the most part, that whole team has been healthy for the whole year. Kawhi has not missed a game, if I'm not mistaken. Paul George missed, 2 games? So I would say to their credit, they have stayed healthy. And for me, I feel like the Clippers' biggest problems in these last couple of years is being available. When your two best stars are playing games, you see it now, it turned into wins. I agree with Max too. He said Ty Lue said give him 10 games to figure it out. He's right. It took all 10 games, but they kind of have a system now. Like they know when to be aggressive, when to pass. Kawhi Leonard is going to be Kawhi. I can see Kawhi Leonard doing that every single game. He's pretty much been consistent for this whole season. Paul George, yeah, he had some cold streaks along that losing streak. Not going to lie, he had games where he was shooting like 2 for 15, which never is good for Paul George, but he got out that slump. James Harden, in a game where he scored 10 points, they still won. In games where he scored 28 plus, they've won. Like, it's just they have a really good mix of players, and if they figure it out, they can make it to the end. It's gonna be some good competition. I'm actually excited for the LA rivalry to continue. I think whenever we play them next, it's gonna be a really great game. Hopefully, both sides are 100% healthy. I think it's good for basketball, good for ratings, and I'm looking forward to it. But the whole guessing and waiting for injuries thing, like I don't know, I don't like that, bro. It just frustrates a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. I certainly get it because I was doing it with AD in the beginning of the season because, like, my reasoning for it was because that if these players are injured almost every year around the same time, around the same amount of time, it's got to be considered a possibility. And that's all that I was saying preseason. Yeah. And I'm beyond happy to say that AD has proven me wrong because he is one of the best centers in this league and he should be healthy. Kawhi Leonard. Again, I have to see. To see. He's been impressive. Again, don't get me wrong, he's been impressive. Always does this, man. I'm sorry, he just always does this. It's not his fault, but he just keeps getting injured in those times when they absolutely 100%, 1000% need him on the court. Injured. Last year's playoffs, he could have been. I'm not saying he could have been there, but they were winning when he was on the court, and they started losing as soon as he was off it. James Harden is a little different, and I feel like you still need to get James Harden to buy in that some nights he's only going to get 10 points. And that in itself is going to be a struggle.
I think, yeah. I mean, I've said this I think I've started seeing this in Brooklyn. I will still say that Brooklyn Harden, it was still kind of the best winning Harden, if that makes sense. Like, if you told me that as a Knicks fan that James Harden was going to end that game with 10 points, I could have told you we were going to lose. I genuinely think that the best version of James Harden is when he doesn't have to take a high volume of shots, is when he's just taking 8, 9, 10 shots a game. He's going to end with between 10 to 15 points, but he's going to have at least that many assists. He's going to shoot a high percentage. He's not going to stall the offense. Harden, it's funny because when he first came to Houston and they made him the point guard, there was the stigma of he's a ball hog. He can't run on offense. He is obliterated that narrative into a million tiny pieces. He has shown that he is one of the best, like, pure offensive, like, one of the best playmakers in the league because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands and being able to create his own shot. He draws so much gravity, but he also has some insane passing abilities. Like, I saw some passes last night against against my Knicks where it's just like you clap your hands, you bow your head, you're like, that is a fantastic pass. The core vision that he has is immaculate. So I think as long as he is kind of buying into that role of being, the 10 to 15 point a game guy, but also being the pure point guard of the team, I think the Clippers have an incredibly high ceiling. And, I'm curious, do you guys think this is the closest that the Lakers and the Clippers have been? Because I know, Earl, you brought up like the sibling rivalry. It's kind of been a one-sided rivalry for a lot of the history. It's, the Lakers are the older sibling, 100% beating up on the younger sibling. Is this kind of the closest that they've been in, at least certainly since you guys have been watching?
That is a good question. I'm not sure if it's like the definitive closest, but it's definitely up there. I'm looking at the standings right now, and in the Pacific Division in general is actually pretty neck and neck, except for the Warriors, who are like the only team below 0.5 LMAO. But it's pretty neck and neck, where it's like the Kings are 15-9, Clippers are 15-10, we're 15-11, and okay, the Suns is 13-12, which is still 0.5, but still. But like I think it's very, very competitive right now, and I think it's just an interesting thing about form versus not form, and that's one of the things about the injury conversation, where it's like whether people like it or not. I think it can be a true testament to like form. It can be a true testament as like who's useful to the team and who's not. However, it is still at the end of the day, the games are going to be counted all the same, and it's about adaptability. And I do think that it is really close right now partially because like different varying forms, and then also adaptability and like how much they've had to adapt. Because I think the Lakers had a lot of injury problems, but then like the Clippers had like an entire system change after like game 15 or something like that. I think that's a pretty big change in itself, even though injuries weren't exactly the issue as well. They got James Harden. Russell Westbrook humbly bowed away from the first rotation. I wish he did that with the Lakers, but I guess there was no James Harden on the Lakers roster for him to bow out to, but still. And also, like, they traded out who was going to be in their depth lineup, essentially. So I think both teams had a lot of things they had to change up, even though for the Lakers, injuries are just like a very, very bitter taste to the mouth as well. But it's super close right now in the Pacific Division in general, except for the Warriors. Condolences. And then especially between the Clippers and the Lakers, it hasn't felt like it's been close this entire season, I will say that, but it's starting to right now. We'll see how long this like closeness, how much of the season this closeness takes up, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Alex.
I think you said it perfectly.
Alex,
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you got it.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with you. I feel like for the most part, right now, obviously we're still big bros. We did win versus the Clippers. Obviously, didn't have James Harden yet. It happened a week later, but I mean, that was a game where Kawhi Leonard literally refused to miss. Like I think he had like what 20 something. It was something crazy, like 18 first quarter points. Nearly unstoppable. I kind of erased it out of my memory, but that was a crazy game. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, I think this is kind of as close as it is right now. Do I think it's going to stay that way? Hopefully not. I think as we get through the season, Lakers will show that we're a great team once we get our players back and we're able to play consistently.
Yeah, and Alex, you mentioned the Golden State Warriors there at the bottom currently of the Pacific Division. Currently going through probably the roughest stretch in the Warriors the last 8 to 9 to 10 years of Golden State basketball. This is probably the lowest we've seen. Obviously, they had that one season where Curry was out and Clay was out and they were at the bottom, but at least at that point, you had the silver lining of Curry will be back, Clay will be back eventually. We're going to get 2 lottery picks, so we can kind of build for the future. Right now, we're seeing kind of what was supposed to be the last hurrah for Golden State of this core, this legendary core. They do not look like a team that can compete for a championship right now. And obviously, we're coming off the heels of yet another Draymond Green suspension, this one indefinite. What is this doing for Golden State? Are we at that point where Draymond is just, he's doing more harm than good? What needs to be done? Is there anything that can be done to get Steph Curry one more championship, at least with this core of players?
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize we were moving from the Clippers conversation so quickly. I wanted to ask the Lakers fans a question really quickly because back in 2012 to about 2013, the Lakers had CP3, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, and all of those role players that they had. While you guys had, I just want to look again. Kobe Bryant, Steve Blake, Pau Gasol, Dwight Howard even. So, do you guys think were you guys Brick Brothers then as well? Or were you guys kind of... Because the Clippers did make it to a couple of Western Conference championships back then as well. So I want to get you guys' take on at least that kind of era where CP3, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, those players were in the Clippers.
I think the big brother title is just like, once you're a big brother, you're just a big brother. Like historically, statistically, history book wise, we're better than the Clippers. And I think that's just what it is. Until they get a banner up there, we're always going to be big bro. So no matter what era, yeah, they had a great team during that time. Then again, the Clippers did what they did best. They weren't able to win a championship with, honestly, one of the most excited offensive teams I've seen in the NBA. They still weren't able to win a championship with prime Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Jamal Crawford, all those guys, DeAndre Jordan, Lob City, couldn't get it done. They couldn't win. So the Clippers still figured out how to clipper up one of their best eras of basketball. So for that reason, we still have Kobe Bryant, arguably one of the greatest of all time. Just the fact.
Wait, I'm sorry. Something just clicked. Did James Harden kick the Clippers out of the playoffs back then?
They lost to the Rockets, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 360. It's a 360.
Yep. Full circle. Yeah, but we're big bros. How about you, Alex?
I kind of understand. I think in terms of like competitiveness, I think in terms of competitiveness, there was like a pretty close, like small era in like the 2011 to 2012, a little bit of 2013. There was like a little bit of that closeness as well. I think for the most part, though, I think the Lakers and the Clippers had like different eras where they were dominant. The reason why Lakers are big brothers because they had a lot more eras where they were dominant, but I think the Clippers also had their eras where they were like in terms of quality basketball, in terms of like how well they're performing as a team, they were like higher than us, even though I wouldn't really give them big brother status just because I feel like that's more than just their records. But in terms of like competitiveness with each other, I think they had different eras of dominance more so, except for that small window that I saw. Because like after that 2012-2013 season, we went to 2013, 14, 15, and we respectfully were not a good basketball team during that time. And the Clippers were actually a very, 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 very competent, good team, and we were not. So I think we had a small window where like it was pretty close, where it's like one of us would be like third, the other would be fifth, or like the other one would be sixth and the other would be fourth, something like that. But I think except for that small window in the mid 2010s, it was just different as to who was like playing the better basketball at the time. So I think that's why there's like a lot little options in terms of like what's the closest the two have been than like a lot of people would expect, because it was just more so there was just different times where one team was a lot better than the others. And even though it was more often in history of the Lakers were better than the Clippers, there was that small window where the Clippers were just like very clearly better team than Lakers. And there was like pretty small overlap. It existed in like 2011 to 2013 and like maybe even like now, but like there wasn't as much overlap as a lot of people probably think.
Yeah.
And those Clippers teams were a lot of fun to watch. It is unfortunate that they didn't win a championship, partially because of James Harden. I didn't realize that. Oh, that is actually really funny that Harden is now. He's come back to LA. Maybe this time he'll be the one to lead him back from down 3-1. But yeah, while we're on the topic of 3-1s and that whole kind of Pacific Division play, I do want to ask about Golden State because right now, like I said, they're not looking too good. So do you guys is there anything that can be done? And, you know, what has this Draymond situation done to just kind of pile on top of what's been an already very rough season for the G-men?
It's over. The dynasty has come to an end, and some Warriors fan will clip this and put it into an edit. That'll be funny. Yeah, I think the time has come, man. Like the Golden State Warriors, they just don't look the same. Klay Thompson, yes, he had a good game a couple nights ago, but he's just not the same consistent Klay that you can expect like 20 plus from every single night. Steph Curry, he can't do it by himself. Like, yeah, Curry's going to have great games, but like eventually when it comes down to it, some teams may be able to game plan against it. I'm not going to say people can completely stop Curry, but when it's just Curry, Andrew Wiggins isn't playing the best version of himself. Draymond Green, he's out every other game for like, he plays one game, misses 17. So it's a lot of stuff going on in Golden State that really don't have anything to do with basketball. Chris Paul, he's Chris Paul. I mean, he had a little injury scare a couple nights ago, but he's back, obviously. But how far is Chris Paul really going to get you when it comes to playoff time? Like, historically, playoff-wise, Chris Paul hasn't been the most clutch, I would say. He has a lot of, I'll use the Omar example, he has a lot of bad, timely injuries. It's crazy. Only when it comes to like just straight up playoff time, which is crazy. So that sucks too. Yeah, I just think the Warriors, they're in a tough spot right now. Like they're just kind of floating. Now Steve Kerr is trying to decide, oh, maybe now is a good time for him to use my youth and try new lineups. Like I feel like at this point they're kind of preparing for the next chapter. You see Jonathan Kuminga finally getting his minutes after 3 years or 2 years, I think, just sitting on the bench. Then wasting his time in his development process. Moses Moody as well. Their rookie as well. Like they're doing. I think they're at the point where they realize that this may be towards the end of it. And some people are saying like we don't even know if Draymond's going to put a Warriors jersey on anymore. There's been that report on Twitter. Top teams who could possibly get Draymond Green. Shout out to Omar for saying that. Yeah.
Only Dallas. Only Dallas.
Yeah, I don't want him on the Lakers, respectfully. I don't know about Alex. I don't know if that's the culture we want. Respectfully, I think
That
You're
was
good,
my
you
next
might-
question, actually. Where do you guys think Draymond lands after the suspension? Is he back with the Warriors? Is he with another team? What do you guys think is gonna happen? Because frankly, this was a very, very big mistake. I mean, he tried to say it was an accident, that he flailed his hands around. I'm sorry.
No.
There is no universe in which that was an accident in the slightest. Dead on the cheek, like he was out. But man, I don't know. It just speaks to Draymond's character, because you know he's a good guy, and you know that he will stick up for players that are against him. Like even with different teams, he will talk about, like last year when the Russell Westbrook shit was happening. He was like, "That's that man's last name. You can't be disrespecting his name like that. That's crazy." So, I mean, I think Draymond has a lot of good takes, and I think Draymond has a lot of bad takes. And right now, it probably costed him the rest of his career.
Ooh.
Yeah, honestly, that's an interesting question. First of all, Earl, you scared me. Why would you bring up the idea that Draymond Green is going to the Lakers? I didn't even think about that. I think you saw the visible shock, the visceral reaction I had live on podcast when you said that. Like that's some spooky hours. I can't even lie. I feel like, even though it makes me sad, because I feel like Draymond has really like helped define, like, he wasn't the definition, but he really helped define what modern defense looks like in the NBA. And I feel like he's been such a really great player, especially defensively. He's really like been kind of a trailblazer in that type of sense. But a lot of that is going to be overshadowed by the shenanigans that he's pulled. He's had a lot of issues like within his entire career, but it's just really been elevated the last couple of seasons or so. I feel like as the Warriors were getting into like the tail end of their dynasty, and I don't know if that's contributing to it, if like Draymond can kind of feel like this era of the Warriors is kind of like ending, and he's like trying to like, I don't know, trying to like figure out his game, and he's gotten more aggressive, and like his definition of aggressive is salt and battery. But I don't know if that's partially the reason or not, but I kind of noticed that too. It just makes me sad, to be honest, because he truly is a great player. He's got a lot of accolades, especially defensively, and a lot to be praised for, but it's going to be overshadowed by a lot of the shenanigans he's pulled. I don't know where he's going to go. Like, I feel like I can't see any team taking him unless they're so desperate. Like, the only team I can maybe see, like, him going back to the Warriors, but I don't know if that relationship is going to stay or not. I don't know 100%. So when Omar said that like this costed him career, even though I'm not 100% sure if that's the case or not, I can definitely see that happening. One thing I will ask y'all though is, I feel like the narrative that a lot of the people in the NBA, a lot of the players are like going off of is Draymond Green, I hope he gets the help he needs, and like I hope like he's in a tough spot, blah 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 blah. And like I kind of want to know what you guys' thoughts on that rhetoric was, because I feel like low-key, and obviously the NBA people in the NBA know more than like the fans of the NBA, but I feel like the rhetoric between like the public and like the people in the league are so different, where it's like the public is like very stern, very like, he's done this too many times, like when is this gonna stop, he's doing too much, whereas like the people in the league are like, he's in a tough spot, he needs help, I hope he gets the help he needs. So I'm like curious also what you guys think about that like contrast in rhetoric.
That's a good question, Alex. I think you hit the nail on the head there when you say the rhetoric is very different between like people in the league. I think that is largely because a lot of the players in the league and a lot of like the higher ups, they do kind of have that responsibility to kind of protect the brand, protect the game of basketball, soften the blow however possible. I was listening to Bob Myers actually talk about Draymond on live television the other night, and he kind of took that more like soft, approach that you mentioned, where it's like he needs the help. Obviously, he's a great player. He's just going through some tough things. He needs to figure himself out, and the league's going to be there to help him with that. So I think there is, a small part of it is kind of that aspect of it. But, from where I stand, obviously he does need some sort. An intervention is necessary. It has been necessary for a while, in my opinion. I'm just not as, and this might just be me as a person, but I'm not as inclined to be as forgiving or, or lenient with the kind of things that Draymond has. because it's been going on for so long, and because it's always him, and because a lot of these things are just terrible acts. I mean, the kicking thing that he had a while back. The funny thing about that is he claimed that in the moment that it was a quote accident. He used the accident card, but then he got suspended for it in Game 5 of the finals, and surprisingly, we haven't seen it since. So you figure if it was an accident, it would have come up since then. But the suspension seemed to have reduced the accident rate to a whopping 0%. I think people forget that he curb stomped Sabonis last year. I think it was last year. Could have been this year, honestly. I forget. But like, that was just that was egregious as heck. And just really dangerous. A lot of these things that he does are just inherently dangerous. This is not the trash talk, the Draymond that we kind of saw during the Warriors dynasty, where at least he wasn't like doing these kind of malicious actions. These are legitimate, dangerous actions. And you don't know what's going to happen the next time he tries to pull one of these shenanigans, where he puts someone in a headlock, where he's just punching people in the face. These are legitimately dangerous actions. And Alex, I know you're kind of like joking about it, but like you said, borderline assault and battery. Like, these are not things that the general public could just do and get away with. Just because he is in the NBA doesn't mean that he cannot be held accountable for these actions, or he should not be held accountable for these actions in the same way the general public is. So I'm very happy personally that the NBA is indefinitely suspending him. I think if they really want to send a message, not just to him, but to the rest of the league, they'll sit him out the rest of the season, and they'll really make him feel this, because this is not an isolated incident. This is not an accident. This is definitive, 100%. There is a problem here. And I think Draymond's not going to change if this is just a tiny little slap on the wrist and he's back in a couple weeks. I think if you really sit him down, you give him some time to reflect, you make him watch this season from his couch and really sit alone with his thoughts for a while, I think that'll get the point across way more than just, a little PR stunt, sit him out for a few games, get him right back in. Maybe it would be, some will argue that that's not a good look for the league, but I think for the long-term health of the game of basketball, this is what needs to be done. And I said this after the headlock, that he should be suspended for a long time. And guess what? He came right back. Same thing happened. History will repeat itself unless we step in and intervene. So I think Draymond definitely does need the help, but I think at this point it has to be more tough love than anything. I think he's forfeited the right to kind of the soft, it's not your fault, type of approach. I think the only thing that will work with him is you're going to take some time off. You're going to sit by yourself with these thoughts. You're going to see the right people. We're going to really, you're going to get through this, but it's going to be tough, and ultimately I think that's the only thing that the NBA can do if they don't want this to happen again. And, you never know what might happen the next time he swings at somebody's head. So I'm for one, all for the indefinite suspension. And again, I hope it's for a very long time, if not the entire season. I think that would send the message that he needs to hear right now.
What do you guys think is appropriate? 25 games? I would say 25 games is appropriate, but also with his history, I still feel like indefinitely could be so, like, I don't even know the analogy to put up, but it'll just, like, grind my gears to the point, like, I'm so livid. So the fact that I don't even know when I'm going to come back drives me crazy. I feel like this is more like the OJ Mayo situation, where they indefinitely banned him from the league, and then they just did it in 2020 and they unbanned him from the league, where I believe he was like out of his prime completely. I agree with Max 100%. I do feel like sitting out this season would definitely, twist his head in the right direction, so to speak. However, I believe this was quite literally back-to-back incidents. Like, didn't he chokehold Rudy Gobert, and then he went right back. I think it was the first game he returned and just swung on Yusuf Nurkic, or one of the first games he returned. So
it was about like a 2 to 3 week difference. I think he probably came back about 2 weeks ago, and then there was probably a 2 week gap. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's 5 to 6 games. It may, there was a very small time gap there.
Yeah, so it might as well be around the same time. But look, an accident looks like this. Joel Embiid accidentally stepped on Grant Williams' head. As soon as Grant Williams got up, he shook his hand and he was like, "Yo, my bad. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, that did not mean to happen. I did not mean to step on your head." And then Grant Williams was like, "Bro, it's ball. We're good. Like, it happens." Like, that's what an apology looks like. That's what it is. Draymond Green didn't even bother to check up on him. Didn't even bother to put his head towards him, put his hand towards him like, "Yo, are you okay?" Like, he didn't even attempt. And last night, I even saw this from Jalen Brunson, even though this was This was during the Suns game, and somebody fell. No, it was last night, and it was Russell Westbrook. He fell. He was taking it was a foul on Jalen Brunson, no doubt about it. But Jalen Brunson was actively trying to pick him up after he saw that he would probably fall awkwardly. So he tried to grab onto him. Unfortunately, he missed, but he still went up and tried to grab him because of the fact that this is basketball, this is sportsmanship. You can't afford to be cheap and stuff like this. And I think we have a lot of great role models around the league that are willing to preserve the name of these players because they just want to be nice. And this goes back to what I said earlier. This is just basketball. This is the game that we loved growing up and playing it on our in our driveways. This is what we grew up with. So at the end of the day, I hope Draymond gets the help that he needs. On a personal level, I'm not going to dive too deep into this. I don't think he's actually troubled. I just think he's a violent individual. But, I mean, man, he's just... Again, I said this earlier. This is going to cost him the rest of his career. Unfortunately, it might cost him the rest of his career. And that's where it's at right now.
Yeah,
it certainly has not helped the fact that his on-court production has also been declining.
Yeah.
I think Golden State was way more willing to put up with these kind of shenanigans when they were winning the championships, and he was, a borderline all-star, perennial all-defensive player. But now that you're kind of, now that the rose-tinted glasses have kind of come off, I think they're starting to see a lot more of this is the guy that he has been. But just they didn't really notice it until now.
Yeah. Then I'll just say this to kind of end it off. I'll just say, I feel like to Alex's question, how the players' reaction based on compared to fan reactions, I think it's more so we don't. I'm not defending Draymond at any means at all. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying from their perspective, these are guys they're friends. They talk to each other on pretty much weekly basis. Some of these guys, they go out to eat, have fun. I mean, we've seen the clip on social media a day ago of Jimmy Butler hanging out with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry going to have fun, just hanging out off court. So I think that's kind of where the interviews come in, where you see Kevin Durant, hey, we hope he gets the help he needs. From that perspective, it's hey, when your boy is doing something is wrong, you want the best for those guys. You want them to be better, do better. So I think that's probably where that perspective is coming from. A lot of these guys, they know Draymond Green, on a personal level. Not saying that it's different or whatnot, but we don't know these players. All we know is what we see on court, which obviously for Draymond Green, Alex said to his defense, he's a great basketball player. He's one of the guys who kind of built up the defensive presence in this era of basketball as far as his size, his skill ability. Honestly, one of the best screen setters of the generation, whether they're illegal or not. It helps Steph Curry arguably become one of the best three-point shooters as far as getting easy looks at times. Not saying Curry can't create his own shots, but just he makes it easy for them. So I think from that perspective, basketball players want the best for Draymond because it's someone that they know. They know, hey, this is my brother. I want my brother to do well. And I just want him to get better. So I think that's where that perspective comes from. And I also do agree with you guys on the fact that, the suspension is necessary. Only way Draymond Green learns is with a lengthy suspension. I don't think it can be 5. I don't think it can be 8. I think the sweet spot, honestly, lowest for me is probably 15. I could see it being around 15. I honestly don't think it's going to be the whole season. Just because we know Adam Silver, he's not the most disciplinary guy. That's not really his role. As commissioner, we haven't seen him nail down the hammer at all, anything like that. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. I think Draymond, he's going to be out for a little bit. Hopefully he'll have some good experiences with his counseling sessions, and overall just Draymond, the person, not the basketball player, just locks in on, his understanding of what he's supposed to be doing, just in life. Maybe that will help him with his on-court stuff because, like you said, we could have called it accidents back in the day, but when it's the same problems occurring, and this year that were happening 5-6 years ago, it's hard to keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. So I think this is the best for him. Give him his suspensions, and hopefully, I'm gonna be optimistic. I always like to be optimistic in these situations. He comes back and he's a better person for it.
Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. Hopefully that whatever help he is getting behind the scenes, whatever counseling, will help him. You know, I think even as NBA fans, even though I just went off on this rant about him, we want to see him do well. We want to see him on the court. He's a good enough player to be in the NBA. Hopefully he can come back and just focus on playing basketball instead of having all these shenanigans drag him down.
For sure.
But yeah, I think that will pretty much do it for this episode. Before we head off, Alex, do you have any final thoughts? Again, thank you so much for being on the show. Do you have any final thoughts? And if you'd like, offer up a prediction for the Lakers this season, because we've certainly heard Earl talk about it a lot. We've talked about it a lot, but what do you think might go on for the rest of the season over in Lakers land?
All right. First of all, thank you guys for having me. I had a lot of fun with this show. I feel like y'all are on the rise. I can truly see big things for this podcast. Beyond the Backboard. I think 2024 is going to be y'all's year. I see something really big for you guys. This has been great. And yeah, thanks for having me. As for Lakers takes, before I get into my takes, congratulations to Earl for getting his quest for 35 in. I don't know how much has been talked about on this show, but in our conversations, he's been praying for this 35 plus point dominant game since the beginning of the season, essentially. And now it's been multiple games at a time where he's been in the 35, 40-ish range. So congratulations to Earl for getting that. I think for my takes, I'll say if we have a pretty healthy overall run, I think if we stay to the point where we don't have like 4+ injuries or like people sitting out at a time, I think we can make it to at least the top 4 in the Western Conference standings. We've seen it happen before, and it's going to be hard to say if they can stay on that form because not only injuries, but like our coaching and like sometimes our players aren't known for being the most consistent. But we've seen the absolute best, and we've seen how long the Lakers can stay at their best, and like if they're at like a good enough form, they can be top 4 in the West, in my opinion. And then let me think. So I guess I'll be like one overarching Laker take. This isn't a hot take. Leave the photo swaps alone. Leave the jersey swaps alone. I've been seeing it all over Twitter.
Please.
There is a jersey swap for every single non-Lakers player on Twitter. I think I just saw one of. I've been seeing a bunch of Steph Curry. I've been seeing Zach LaVine ones since like early November. I'm scared that we're gonna see Draymond Green ones now too. Now that Earl brought it up, I have to lift my mic for this. Leave me alone with the jersey swaps, I beg. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end my note off there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Alex, we will definitely. I'm sorry, Max.
I was gonna say when I said Alex was one of the more rational Lakers fans, this is why. This is why I said that. But yeah, thank you so much, Alex, for being on. If you guys are Lakers fans, you should definitely go ahead and download the PSF app and join the Lakers fan room. You'll see Alex; he's super active over there. Earl, of course, both of these guys, and our very own Omar has been hosting his post-game show for the New York Knicks over there. Knicks Tape, a post-game show. So again, if you're a Knicks fan, go ahead and join that. Check that out. We're all pretty active over on PSF, so if you want to interact with us more, be sure to download that app. And if you just want to keep up with Beyond the Backboard, as we keep putting out these episodes, they'll probably wind up being on Sundays from now on. I think that's kind of settled into our next recording range. So Sunday afternoons, you want to listen to us on YouTube, you want to listen to us on Spotify, we'll be there. We got TikToks going up, we got shorts coming up, so a lot of BTB content to interact with.
Yeah.
As always. So
just want to say my bad. I just want to say real quick, Alex, thank you so much for being on the show, of course. Love that you were here.
Yes.
And you will definitely be here again one day. I will personally make sure of that. I promise. But that's it from us, guys. Appreciate everybody who tuned in, and peace.
Peace out, guys.
Adios.